One. Hey, everybody, I am Kevin Iole. Thank you for joining me. My guest right now is, I guess you could say, the head of one of the fastest growing sports in the country, because every time I turn around, I'm seeing BKFC is legalized in a different state. There's a sellout crowd here. Mike Perry's making $1 million there. So BKFC is really getting hot these days. And joining me right now is the founder of the BKFC, Dave Feldman. Dave, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Kevin, man. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you on. So, I've watched a few of the fights on television, never been at one yet, but what do it's been so successful. Why do you think, what is the secret of the success of this form of fighting?
I think there's a few aspects to it. I think number one is it's very fast paced. So I feel like today we're living in kind of like what everybody wants to call an ADD society. You got 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It's very fast paced. It's very engaging. It keeps your attention. So I think that really helps. Our fights are very competitive. So we always match even fights. They might not be the best fighters in the world that we match, but they're always putting on great fights. And then we put the best fighters in the world on, and they're great fights too. So I think we put on great fights. And I think the most important thing is it's relatable to everybody in the world. Like, I think that I do this a lot with mixed martial arts. I go, did you ever hear of a Uma Palada, or did you ever hear of a Darce choke? And people go, no, I don't know what that is.
Right.
And I go, do you know what a bare knuckle punch to the face is? Do you ever been hit in the face? You ever hit someone in the face? Do you ever watch someone hit someone in the face? And the answer is always yes. Everybody in the world, man, woman, child, doesn't matter how old you are, black, white, Chinese, doesn't matter. You know what a bare knuckle punch is. So I think it's very relatable to you. And I think that's why it's catching on, because I think the normal person in the world can actually get behind this, and almost it's them in their fighting. They can picture themselves in their fighting. So I think that's why it's really caught on, those three things.
Back in the day when I guess Bobby Gunn was doing this, and he was really promoting. He was like the only guy out there, right? Bobby was, hey, trying to, the bare knuckle champion and everything. I talked to people about it, and the concern I got is that guys would break their hands in fights and then basically not be able to defend themselves because their hands are broken, and what they can do. Now, from what I see watching your fights, that's no longer an issue. So, I mean, is that because of how quickly the fights go, or how would you say it works? Because, if there was a concern at one point that guys breaking their hands is no longer a concern.
Sure. Listen, there's a misconception on bare knuckle fighting in general, and it's that it's very, very dangerous and there's way more injuries. But statistically, and the data shows now, that we actually have less concussive and subconcussive damage. We have less facial fractures, and even what you just brought up, we have less hand breaks. And I think we have less hand breaks because people are really picking their punches. They're not going out there just wild like in a street fight. They know where they can land. They know where they can't land. Also, we also wrap the hand from there down. So it supports the mid hand, so you're not getting just loose where you're able to just break the hand. A lot of the hands get swollen and they come down, in an hour or two. But we're really not getting those injuries. The only injury that we're getting more than anything else, as you could imagine, would be lacerations, right? But they get sewed up the night of, they heal 2 weeks later, and people are safe and sound.
That you said, we're having less concussions or whatever than less than what? Less than boxing? What are you talking about?
Yeah, less than significantly less than boxing, a little bit less than MMA. We have less concussions. We have less facial fractures, significantly less than both. We have slightly less hand breaks than both, and we have significantly more lacerations than both.
The thing I find intriguing is that, you've kind of hit on a formula here. A lot of MMA fighters, right? Like I would have thought, hey, you might have got boxers who were disaffected. And I know you have Austin Trout's going to be fighting for you. He's a former world champion, a terrific fighter. But it seems like, you've really had success, cultivating MMA fighters who kind of maybe have reached their limit in MMA and now come to you, and you've turned a few of them into stars. How did it turn out that MMA fighters would be a source of talent for you when, that I would have thought it would have been boxing?
I would have too. When I started this, I would have lost all the money in the world because I would have bet on every boxer. But I think what's happening, Kevin, is MMA fighters are used to getting hit with a harder object, right? Not necessarily a harder punch, but a sharper elbow, knee, shin, something that's harder that the boxers aren't used to. They're used to getting hit with gloves. Now they're used to getting hit harder with gloves, but they're not used to getting hit with a hardened object. And I think the MMA guys, the Muay Thai guys, they're more used to that. So I think that's why those guys have carried over now. Now, a lot of the boxers are really starting to come over. Like I've got some really, really big names that I wish I could tell you because I know you're a boxing guy, but I can't yet because we're negotiating. But some of the biggest names in boxing, in the past, 8 to 10 years are really talking to us now, and we're going to make some really big moves in 24, getting those guys over as well. So I think it's going to be an even playing field as we move into the latter part of 2024.
One of the issues that always comes up in combat sports is how much are the athletes getting paid, right? And I think if you Google Mike Perry, the other word you'll see next to his name is million, right? He's always talking about getting paid $1 million. My question is this: I like the idea of athletes making as much money as they can, but I also like the idea of the fans getting benefit of it and having, like, boxing. To me, a lot of times the matchmaking is bad because you pay two guys so much money to fight in the main event that you can't put on an undercard, and that you don't develop any really good fighters on the rest of that card. That obviously is not what you're doing. So how do you, when you're working your budget, like, is that something that you keep in mind? Like, hey, we have a commitment to make great matches up and down the card, not just on the main event.
Yeah, well, these guys know, and I talk to them all the time that the fans are first. And if the fans, because a lot of the guys are saying, yo, how come I can't fight Mike Perry? And I go, because it doesn't make sense, because the fans aren't as interested. I said, if the fans ask me for you, then you get paid more, and then we put you in that fight. The fans have to demand who wants to fight, and that demands on who gets paid more, right? But all my guys from the bottom to the top of the organization know what we have to do is put on an exciting fight. And if we don't put on an exciting fight, they don't come back. And that's just the way it is. And I don't want to sound harsh, but at the end of the day is, you guys work a 9 to 5 job. You guys work your butts off to put food on the table for your families, and you're paying to watch these guys fight, and they need to let it all hang out. I tell my guys too, listen, you could lose 5 fights in a row and you'll keep coming back if people say, wow, that was a good fight, right? I don't care. I'm not looking at building guys to being 5-0, 6-0, 7-0. I'm looking at building guys to say, man, 5 great fights in a row, 6 great fights in a row, could be 10 great fights in a row. That's it. As long as they're fighting, as long as the fans are saying, wow, that was a great fight, they always have a place here and they're always going to make money.
So do you feel like Perry is kind of just the first of what are going to be a number of those kind of fighters that, hey, they're not going to be Floyd Mayweather, and they're not going to be called TBE or whatever, but might end up becoming household words as the sport grows?
Yeah, I think we're what I like to call, the great middle ground, if you will. You might have a great guy like Floyd Mayweather who can really box and make people miss and stuff like this, but he probably wouldn't do that well here because it's a different kind of sport, right? Or you got a guy who's a great grappler, and I mean, who's not a great grappler, but can strike in MMA, and he doesn't really do good in MMA. So this is a great place for him. So I think what we did here, Kevin, really, we created our own lane, right? We didn't want to just be a knockoff of something else. We created something completely different right in the middle, that a boxer, a mixed martial artist, a Muay Thai fighter, kickboxer, they can all compete here, and they can all have an advantage in a different way. And I think that it's really working because we're putting on really, really exciting fights from the top to the bottom.
One of the things that happens in combat sports, selling tickets, and a lot of times out here, promoters say we sold 10,000 tickets for this event and everything. And then you get the commission report and you see that, well, they paid the tax on 3,000 of the tickets, and they're counted as sold because they paid the tax and the state got its money, but the promoter didn't get any money. And so really they're kind of living a lie, right? Are you pulling any of that? I mean, if you're telling me you're selling 7,000 tickets in Salt Lake City, are you getting cash for those 7,000 tickets?
I'm honestly probably getting cash for 6,500 of those tickets. We're always comping some tickets. We're never just selling everything. I mean, they're different partners, different giveaways, different things like that. But if you're asking me, are we giving away half our tickets? We're not doing that. We're definitely not doing that. We could be in at 10%. We could give away 10% at the top level. And some shows we don't give away any. It just depends where we are. And you have to give away some for some people that are helping you out and doing things like that. But I don't think we had the need to give away free tickets, if that's what you're asking. I don't think we had the need to. We did at the beginning. We did because people didn't know what it was. Now we don't have that kind of need at all. So, we're selling tickets. It's funny because I just did an investor call, and when I told him, I said, we're one of the few promotions in the world that are actually really selling tickets now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, your story is almost a little bit like the growth of UFC, right? I hate to say that because they went from $40 million in the hole to valuation of $12 billion right now, and that's putting pressure on you. But I mean, as I'm looking at the rise of what you're doing, it seems like there's parallels there. Did you look at what they did and what made them successful, and have you kind of tried to follow that path in your sport?
Not really like looking what they did that made them successful, looking how they navigated through regulatory, absolutely, and how they had to go state by state and how they had to do different things to get fans to watch them. Absolutely did that. Look, some people do harp on Dana White and say that the fighter pay isn't what it's supposed to be, but the guys are still making really great money. The guy did a hell of a thing. He, like you said, he brought it from 40 million in the hole to a $12 billion valuation. Not many people in the world could do that, so he did a hell of a thing. So if anyone wants to compare me to the UFC, and I'll take that comparison all day long, because if we can get anywhere near where they went, which I think we're going to, not near where they went, but if we can get half of what they went or 25% of what they went, we defied every odd in the world, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Nevada was a big key for the UFC when MMA was sanctioned in Nevada, and I think that happened in '99 or 2000 before Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta owned the UFC. You're still not sanctioned in Nevada. It's kind of changed now. Nevada used to be the fight capital of the world, and I think Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, is probably the fight capital of the world now. But you got sanctioned in California. And I had talked to people in California who said, absolutely no way is BKFC going to be sanctioned in California. And I guess you and Peter Villegas, the chairman of the commission there, somehow worked it out. But talk to me about the significance of California, Dave, and what you think that's going to mean for the sport going forward.
It's what I said at the beginning when I started this thing, and media didn't really cover us. And I said, soon they're going to have to cover us. Not they don't have to, but we're going to be talked about, and they're going to want to cover us, right? The same thing is with California, but I really didn't think California was coming on yet. I said they're going to be one of the last states, but what they saw is us selling tickets, right? So when we're selling tickets, we're paying ticket tax, and that helps obviously our cause into a state to help create revenue. They also saw our safety measures and what the kind of staff that we have that works for us, and really, I think ultimately he just really allowed himself to be knowledgeable on what we're doing. He allowed himself to educate himself on it. Before then, when you just don't like it, you're going to say, no, I don't like it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. And you're not allowing yourself to educate. Once he allowed himself, he actually is becoming a fan of this now. So California was legal. We're looking at an April date there. And we are in the very, very, very near future pitching the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and I hopefully we can get a thumbs up there as well.
Interesting. Andy Foster, the executive officer of California, he is a former fighter himself. Do you think that helped? Because Andy fought MMA, and Andy fought MMA in the day when it was the wild days, and not necessarily as regulated and as safe as it is today. I say safe, relatively speaking. Do you feel like the fact that Andy himself was a fighter, he could understand and has done such great work in terms of helping advance MMA? That did his role in this, sort of help your cause?
I think Andy was one of the guys that said, "We'll absolutely never sanction this there." Like he said that, and then again, he allowed himself to be educated. Being what I always say is like some of these regulators, I was like, man, they've never even been punched in their face, so they don't even know what it's like. He does, he did, and he allowed himself to really listen, and then he understood what we were talking about. So yes, answer your question, yes, I do think that him being a fighter did absolutely help the cause in California, and I think California can be a really, really good home for us because it's so big.
Let's lay the roadmap out for 2024 then. How many events are you going to have this year? And is there a risk? I know you're going to what, 6 or 9 countries, you're going to be moving around. Is there a risk of going too fast, right? I mean, is that something that you have to be aware of?
We're only going too fast in like a cash flow perspective, because by the time the money comes in for this event, we're already 5 events down the road. But we're doing some really good investment deals right now that some big time players are coming in, and that's not going to be a problem for 2024. A lot of our events aren't really overstepping the other ones, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. We also have 3 or 4 different platform deals, meaning TV or OTT deals that we're going to be on that are going to carry just a series, maybe a series of 12, a series of 12. To answer your question, we're targeted for 52 events for 2024, and I think we could go as high as 100, but it's not as bad as it seems because we're going to license some of these internationally, and they're going to kind of run their own events just with 1 or 2 of our guys overseeing it. But right now we're at 52. We're going to do I think 30. Let me do. I think 32 of those are in the United States.
Wow, that's going to be amazing. Do you know off the top of your head how many states in the U.S. you're sanctioned in?
28. We're sanctioned in 28. We probably could be sanctioned in 44, 45 right now. It's just those other ones are states that, they just don't have a big fan base right now. They don't have a big population. I don't just really want to waste our time and effort yet. But, eventually we'll be in all of them. But I think we're only 1 or 2 states away from being where we want to be with the states that we really want and need. And I think, that happened probably 3 or 4 years faster than I thought it was going to happen.
But before we wrap up, and I appreciate your time talking to Dave Feldman of the BKFC right here. Just kind of curious, other stars you have. Paige VanZant was one that made a big deal when she came in. She's making a lot of money on OnlyFans. I don't think she has to fight if she doesn't want to. I read an interview, I believe, by Damon Martin, my friend from MMA Fighting, said that she did want to fight again. Do you notice when Paige fights, do you notice an uptick in business, number one? And number two, her did you think a woman like that would ever be as fierce? I mean, she seems to be a pretty fierce athlete, and when I watch some of her fights, pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
I think that's what really makes me a fan of her is that she did lose her bare knuckle fights, but she lost close fights, but she was so gritty and it beat herself up inside to the point that she wants to fight again. She never has to work or fight again right now. She has a lot of money now, but she can't live with the fact that she didn't fulfill what she needed to fulfill in fighting, and she wants to come back. So she's probably going to come back and hopefully be on that California card. But she's been great to work with, and yes, I saw a big uptick when she fought, and she made it all worth it. You figure it, a girl like Paige VanZant, nobody thinks is going to get punched in the face with a bare knuckle, and she does. So a lot of people go, "Wow, I got to check that out," and they check it out. But we've got a lot of top tier guys. I think in the next 3 months we'll probably have, pretty much our roster filled out with 3 or 4 more superstars and 8 or 9 more A fighters that we want to add to the roster, and then we'll ride out 2024. But we're always looking to add marquee talent to the roster, and we're going to keep looking. And I think 2024 is going to be a year that really puts us in a really, really great position in combat sports.
Yeah, I saw, and I mean, I give you a lot of credit because you're smart at taking advantage of media opportunities. And, Francis Ngannou was a free agent. Hey, we're interested in Francis Ngannou. And Nate Diaz was a free agent. You're interested in them. Did you ever really come close to getting either of those guys or any other fighter of that ilk into fighting in BKFC?
Well, I didn't because my the money that I could offer at those points weren't there. This year it's a different story. I think there's not a. I don't think there is a. Maybe there's 3 or 4 fighters in the world that we're not going to be able to vie for now. I think we can vie for almost anybody in the world now, and I think that puts us in a great spot to really compete. For a top position in combat sports. But look, we're going to keep going after everything we can go after, and the ones that make sense we'll get, and the ones that don't, we didn't, and people talk about it, and it works anyway.
Let's wrap with this. People in the United States that want to watch your fights, like where are the advent? How do they get them? How do they, be able to see your live events?
Or you can get everything a lot. Everything streams live on our app. It's the BKFC app. You can get that at bkfc.com. We also have a partnership with Fubo TV, which we do a lot of events there as well. So Fubo TV or bkfc.com right now. And if you like fighting, if you like mixed martial arts, you like boxing, you're gonna love this. It's the most exciting combat sport in the world, bar none.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, well, congratulations to you, Dave, for the success you've had and the best of luck in further success. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care. Have a good weekend.
All the
Bye-bye.
best, brother. Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.